Hi, this is Devon, and I just want to give you a heads up that this episode has a content warning for mentions of suicide and sexual assault. Also, at around 11 minutes in, Sam's computer crashed and I had to do some funky editing magic, so that's why there's music there. Please enjoy. Welcome to Myth and Kin, a travelogue podcast about the Witcher series. I'm Devon, and I'm joined by Sam Howitt.
Hello.
We'll be going through the Witcher books and later the games in order to see what the series as a whole has to offer. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Time of Contempt, which is the second full novel in the series and the fourth book, all told. And
I think... sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, we probably, if we had had the foresight to give ourselves more time, with the first episode, we probably would have... included this book in the first episode because the first novel's episode, because we had 20 minutes of an episode saying basically nothing happened in Blood of Elves, and then a shit ton of stuff happens in this book.
Everything happens.
Yeah.
I think it's worth also putting a bit of a content warning on this episode.
Yeah, for a few different things. It's just... Ugh. It's back to being fantasy with all the murder and sexual assault that it entails.
I thought from Blood of Elves that he was kind of starting to move away from being such an edgelord, but now it's just come back in full force towards the end of this book.
Yeah, he was mainly just stepping off the gas because Blood of Elves was just like a prelude to this.
Yeah. The bits of this book I really like.
Overall, I do like this book. More for the way it elucidated on all the ways that Geralt is a fucking Mary Sue motherfucker than, like, actual the events that happened. But also it's like, this is where probably like all the, this is about like politics, world building stuff could probably start to be like legitimately claimed.
Yeah, and I believe because the problem with Blood of Elves is that aspects of, so each story kind of felt disconnected a bit. Like the overall arching war with Nilfgaard kind of felt like it was something in the distance that kind of separated from everything else. And when it did come up in that story, it felt jarring because it didn't feel like it had anything to do with what Geralt was up to. Even though Nilfgaard does want the Lion Cub of Sintra, wants Ciri there, all the politicking doesn't feel like it's connected to that.
I made a joke about how, like, I know who Riance is. Cut to fucking a zillion pages of kings talking about politics. This doesn't fit in. And it's like, in the context of this book, it would fit in. So yeah. I really feel like Blood of Elves and Time of Contempt, really, you need to have them all in one go.
Yeah, I feel like it really does come to a head, clashes together in kind of a really fun way.
Mm-hmm.
But the story does it start with Ciri?
Yeah, it starts with Ciri and Yennefer, and they're going to Gorsvalen to then get some money and then put Ciri in the School of Magic. And
then Geralt gets involved because Ciri tries to escape.
Yeah, and he happens to be nearby in the place she's trying to escape to, and in the process, she is pursued by the Wild Hunt, because the Wild Hunt is just like, oh hey, you are important, you're ours, and she's just like, oh fuck, no! And then Yennefer chases after her, they meet up with Geralt, who's there, and Dandelion, who's there, by chance, because that's how this story works. Ciri is the person who prompts the chance encounter flag everywhere she steps.
Yeah. I'm just gonna stop you one moment. I forgot to press record.
You motherfucker.
I'm so sorry.
We're 7 minutes in, you You dick!
I am so sorry.
You son of a bitch! Okay, well, fuck it. I'll adjust from the guide audio. I cannot be fucking bothered to re-record the last 7 minutes of audio.
And I'm also recording that.
And also, I'm leaving this in because that's why the last 6 or 7 minutes of audio was kind of shit. It's fine.
This is my third podcast?
Yeah. And also, you had to sort out audio problems beforehand.
Yeah.
So, there was that to worry about. Also, we've discovered that the Wikipedia page for this book is very sumptuous in its details about this book.
Yeah.
It seems to have been written before it was out in English, so I hypothesized that it was probably someone who could read Polish, making an effort to help out non-Polish reading individuals get the gist of the plot.
Yeah.
Since it didn't hit English until 2013, and there was several delays after its original planned release in 2009, so...
Yeah, there's a 5-year gap between the previous book and this book in English. I wonder if the first book just didn't do that well or something.
I want to say that this specifically was one they had issues getting localized. No, it was Baptism of Fire was 2014, and the EPUB I was reading had a promotion for The Witcher 2.
Yeah, no, same.
Yeah, I don't know why these took so long to get localized. Lady Lake only got localized this year. That's wonky.
And there's still one out next year.
Yep.
So, back to the thread we were on before I interrupted my idiocy.
It's fine.
So, once Ciri kind of escapes, ends up meeting up with Geralt and Dandelion, and then Yennefer ends up joining them as well.
Yeah, she teleports over, I think.
And Geralt and Yennefer get back together.
Yep. Dandelion is such a fucking idiot. He's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Ciri's just like, oh, Geralt's bowing his head and Yennefer is yelling at him, and Dandelion's like, oh, that's her saying sorry. It's like, fuck off. Goodness. Also, there was another reason that Yennefer was going to this area of the world, and that's because there's a meeting, and there's like this entire like chapter where Ciri explores this town with the banker's friend's kid or something. I don't remember specific relation.
It's like a child or young man who works in the bank.
He's a squire of some sort, basically. And they go on like an adventure. Ciri fights off a wyvern and shifts the glory for that onto some random kid who, honestly, I would expect to come back in the Witcher games, because that would be something they do.
Yeah.
Then she gets caught by like the headmistress and former headmistress of the School of Magic, because apparently the School of Magic is playing host to this chapter of mages meeting, and that is why Yennefer is also there, instead of just shoving Ciri off with someone else to get carted to the school. Then Geralt goes with Yennefer to the meeting, and it's one of the most silly chapters.
Yeah.
It's like, I like it, but it's just kind of weird.
It's just, here's all the upper class, weirdly dressed, show-offy mages.
And not to mention, the thing about mages in this universe is that they have, through some unexplained, just accept this writing quirk, they're all educated to the point that modern people are.
Yeah.
Like, it's really weird when that gets pointed out, because, like, one of the mages pulls Geralt aside to have a meeting with him, and they're talking about how a bunch of stuff and how they're similar. Then I think at one point he calls Geralt a fatalist, and he's just like, yeah, and that's another word I shouldn't know, right? Which is just like, okay. It really places Geralt in like this really privileged position in a lot of different ways. It's just, oh.
It's the thing with the mages is that they are educated. Within the world of The Witcher, to be skilled, magic has to be kind of taught.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is sent off to the School of Mages. They've all been through an education. At least most of these people in the Conclave.
Yeah.
Like, as you can get, it's a party with really particular manners, and everyone has to be real polite. but in the sort of way...
It's a very aristocratic function.
Yeah, it's not the banquets that the Witcher himself is used to.
Yeah, and he also meets, I can't say his name.
Dijkstra?
Dijkstra. That's the one. My tongue didn't want to make that sound.
It's silent.
Fucking fantasy names, and also, like, other languages are weird. Like, he makes some remark that he'd rather be at the sort of place where he gets so drunk he passes out and wakes up with the bar's hounds lying next to him under the table. It's just like, yeah, God. I had this entire, like, thought of Geralt is the most special person in the entire universe. And Ciri is somehow more special than him because she's got the blood of, like, the elder gods or, like, the elder betrayer mage in her, and her son is apparently going to bring about the apocalypse.
Yeah. The thing is I don't feel like Geralt is really considered special within this narrative.
I mean, he's not, but he is as a function of being the most primary viewpoint. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everybody. Are you also recording now?
Yes.
Okay.
Back to recording.
Sam's computer just imploded. So sorry. I mean, this is why I have the guide audio. It's fine.
God, where were we?
I have no idea. Let's okay.
Well, we just got to the conclave.
Yeah. That party made me realize that, like, Geralt is extra special because he needs to be at all useful in every situation that is, like, part of this plot, because, like, he's the anachronistic Witcher, but he knows all the things that the sorcerers know in terms of, like, philosophy and shit, because he is in love with Yennefer and went through some magic training. So, like, he's got all these things, and, like, he's special because he's a Witcher, but the Witcher trial of grasses didn't fucking remove his emotions like it should have.
Yeah.
And, like, all this stuff. Honestly, like, the entire banquet scene was just really silly and fun, and also it's the last silly and fun thing to happen, because then everything goes to shit.
Yeah, so during the banquet, Geralt proposed to buy both Vilgefortz and Dijkstra, who have completely different aims. They both try to recruit the Witcher.
Yeah.
But Vilgefortz is kind of vague in how he wants to use the Witcher, but Dijkstra is very blunt in saying that he works for the King of Redania, Vizimir.
Yep.
But then Geralt and Yennefer get back together to reconnect, and then after a certain point, Geralt needs to go for a piss, and in the process of trying to find somewhere to go for a piss, stumbles upon
the coup.
Yeah, basically a coup that's going on, and everybody's dying, and Geralt has no idea what's going on. It's slightly hard to follow as a reader, but then you sort of eventually... like, all sorts of things are coming in and crashing, and Geralt has... Everything is 2 steps ahead of where Geralt is at this point.
Yeah, like, he's just like, and then Triss blinds him so that he's, like, just like, well, okay... I'm just being held captive right now. I'm just gonna be a good prisoner and listen and get what information I can. As he does listen to all this shit going on, he realizes that basically the chapter was divided in kind of a civil war thing, but also, like, literal war, because one of the like, the defective side, not defective, like, they were defectors. That doesn't make them defective. The treasonous side was siding with the Nilfgaardians And also, the Nilfgaardians were, as kind of people in Blood of Elves were saying, they're basically using the Scoia'tael to rile people up.
Yeah.
So, with the supposedly safe, I think it's later? The chronology in this is kind of awkward.
It kind of jumps back
Around.
and forward
Yeah.
a lot during this sequence, but basically all of the mages kind of get together.
Yeah, and they're talking in like a neutral ground where all spellcasting has been disabled, but then the leader of like the I forget who Tisaya is on the side of.
She's kind of not.
I think she's on like the chapter needs to keep itself safe side.
She's on that side, but basically the kind of thing that comes from this is that Yennefer brings in Ciri before the chapter, and Ciri begins to prophesize, brings up that the one of the kingdoms has done an attack on Nilfgaard, and some of the northern kingdoms are raging more war against the Scoia'tael, and the king of Redania, Vizimir, has been assassinated the night before.
Yep.
And that sort of gets Tisaya mad, who brings down the barrier that prevents spells, and then huge fight breaks out.
Yep. And also the alongside the spellcasting barrier being dropped, a fucking platoon of Scoia'tael just invades the chamber and starts killing everyone.
Yeah. And then Dijkstra then tries to take Geralt, but like Geralt manages to escape Dijkstra in kind of a really kind of graphic sequence.
Yeah. He basically is surrounded by Dijkstra's like entire close guard, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna take you to here. We need to keep Ciri safe." And Geralt's just like, "Well, no, I'm not gonna trust you with anything," and beats the shit out of everyone, including Dijkstra, who he like specifically goes out of his way to break his ankle, and it's just like, gee.
Yeah.
And also, more reasons to have content warning on this episode. Apparently the entire thing was a plan to get the chapter of mages to get so riled up at itself that it can't interfere with the Nilfgaard invasion.
Yeah.
And all of this, to quote the Wikipedia page, overwhelms Tisaya and she commits suicide.
Yeah.
That just happens.
Yeah. So Geralt, Ciri do try to escape. Ciri ends up going off into the Tower of Swallows, which is a nearby tower with an unstable portal.
You're actually thinking of its destination. The tower. The tower she goes to is the Tower of Gulls.
Tower of Gulls.
It connects to the Tower of Swallows. And the Tower of Swallows is a book title.
Yeah.
Which is why you might have been mixing them up.
The Tower of Gulls has an unstable portal, which is also preventing the mages really using portal magic.
Yeah.
So they don't have that convenience. So Ciri escapes through that.
After that, one of the other mages shuts down that portal entirely, like dismantles it, and then teleportation magic is brought up as like Triss is trying to keep Geralt from fucking dying because he got beat to shit by the mage that tried to convert him.
Yeah, the part where it comes across Geralt protecting Ciri and Vilgefortz, however you fucking pronounce that name.
Yeah, it's Vilgefortz.
Comes up to fight the Witcher, and they kind of have this setup to have the fight, and then before any fight happens, it's basically done as a flashback from when Geralt is in Brokilon being treated for his injuries.
Yeah.
Because he gets quite beaten up by Vilgefortz.
Yeah, because it turns out if you're a wizard, you can augment your shit to be very, very painful and good at fighting. Also, he was a mercenary to start with, so he's just very good at being a fighter, too.
So, the chapter of mages is essentially fizzles out and broken.
Yeah.
From this point, and from then the Emperor of Nilfgaard declares he's going to marry Ciri, because you think she might be captured, but really they don't have Ciri, they have a fake Ciri, and are still looking for her.
They have a fake Ciri, and I think it's even the one that Dijkstra, proposed that Geralt hide the actual Ciri behind.
So Ciri escapes through a portal in the Tower of Gulls, and ends up in a desert.
Yep.
And gets help from a unicorn. I really like the bit in the desert.
Yeah, the bit in the desert was really cool and really stark in comparison to anything else, but I also felt like the end was the most fucking confusing thing, and I don't know if I can find the precise page it was on, but the end where, I don't know if it would be dialogue particularly, but she's left alone after it.
So just sort of start generally from the beginning. She starts crossing this desert because she's suddenly ended up in it. It's horrible. But then she comes across a unicorn
who leads her to water.
Helps her get through the desert. They help each other get through, basically, and then they start coming across these. Would you say they're antlion kind of monsters? I don't know if there's anything outside of JRPGs.
Yeah, I that's how I would I recall in the Golden Sun, the evil desert. There's antlions in the sand pits, and I guess those are probably it's an antlion, that's a thing, but they're not monstrously huge. They mainly do small insects and stuff more than anything, I would imagine. Yeah, there's antlions in the desert, and the RPG-sized antlions.
They are. That bit is kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It really gets across the terror of oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, no, and also it's flinging rocks everywhere because it's angry and hungry, and also there's dozens of these things.
Yeah. Well, it's they struggle with one of them, and then they just see there's these big dips in the sand that are bigger than the one they've just been in, which is crazy. And
also there were bumps moving around between the pits. So if they had thought to trace between the pits, they would have been caught by that. Whatever that was. They don't.
Yeah. So the unicorn kind of is injured by the antlion, or an antlion, but it's kind of, I think Ciri is as well.
I think she manages to avoid any major injury. She was more injured when she got into the desert because she was beat to shit from falling onto a boulder. And she's also working through, not having proper hydration. But, they go through, a few days where she tries to get the unicorn to, let her look at its wound, and it doesn't. And then it collapses, and she finally has a chance to. And that's when she tries to draw upon magical power to help heal it.
Yeah, because remember, she suddenly, halfway through being through the desert, sort of suddenly remembers, oh yeah, I had magic training from Yennefer.
Yeah.
But she, for the first time, draws upon the power of fire, which Yennefer had warned her against.
Yeah.
And you then just immediately see why, because it kind of brings out some sort of paranoia and lust for revenge.
Yeah, and also because she's of this particular bloodline, she has this deep in her blood are desires and this want for revenge against the world for betraying her ancestor Falca.
Yeah. So at that point, through the power of fire magic, she does heal the injured unicorn, but kind of ends up more damaged herself.
Yeah, there's a bit where she basically just I have so much power, I can do anything. And then the text is she didn't even notice she had burned through all the kindling she had set up, and the rock was on fire now. And it's just it burned through all of her energy as well. And she eventually just relinquishes it entirely.
Yeah.
And the power leaves her. Then a bit of some other stuff happens, and because of all this stuff, she's found by other unicorns, and it has some dialogue between them, not spoken, probably telepathic of some sort. It's just this being is dangerous.
It's written like how aliens are sometimes written, how they just don't talk in the same manner and use of nouns in the same way that we do.
More immediately, it reminded me of how the pods had discussions in Nier Automata.
Huh. Yeah, no, that does make a good comparison point.
It just feels kind of impersonal in a way that we would recognize as being personal. And it's kind of unsettling, and it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because they're unicorns, and they're weird, and they don't relate to humans exactly.
Yeah. Then we find out she's basically in Nilfgaardian territory, and they're looking for her.
Yeah, she was in the Korath Desert, which is known as the Frying Pan.
Yeah.
And then she gets out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Oh. Oh, God's sake. I don't see how I didn't spot that. But yeah, no, she's ends up kidnapped by some bounty hunters. Are they led by a Nilfgaardian? Or someone, a knight from a country owned by Nilfgaard, but then the knight comes up against someone from a rival country, so they basically duel each other. And that's a fun sequence to read.
Yeah, it's also kind of hectic.
Yeah. No, it's... So both those knights kind of take care of each other.
Along with their squires.
Yeah.
Like, it's just roundly murdered. Everyone's dead, except for the bounty hunters who just like, I don't want to get involved in this. We'll take the bounty. And then they carry on until they go to a village and meet a fellow group of bounty hunters. And she meets their bounty, Kaylee.
Yeah, I would say from this point is where the book, I think, gets a lot more uncomfortable.
Yeah,
to read.
Boy.
Because the thing is, it's like this series kind of establishes generally. It's weird how it kind of wants to establish like bounty hunters as more. I mean, this is the standard in fantasy fiction and even as other kinds of fiction, but they're very blunt, brash, kind of angry,
crude,
yeah, kind of disgusting in the way that they treat people and especially women.
Yeah.
And a lot of the kind of threats they make at Ciri are kind of uncomfortable to read.
Yeah.
I mean, they all get murdered, but...
Yeah, but still, even after that, Kaylee tries to force himself on Ciri and has to get fucking shoved off by another rat.
Context for that is that Kaylee is a member of a gang that sort of goes around stealing within Nilfgaardian... Yeah, gang of bandits in Nilfgaardian territories called the Rats, and they kind of help Ciri get out of the situation, but the real fucked part about what Kaylee does to Ciri is he describes it as kind of a reward, and it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then, like, at the end of the book, structurally, this kind of come up as really weird to me, is how it just, like, has a lengthy introduction of the rats.
Yeah.
And who they are. Just like, at the end of the book. And then someone who serves under the Emperor of Nilfgaard often goes by the name Tawny Owl. I can't remember the full name of the guy, but they call him Tawny Owl a lot in the book.
Stefan Skellen?
Stefan Skellen, yes. He orders the rats to be killed, even though he knows Ciri has now joined them as a new member. He still orders for all of them, including Ciri, to be killed, even though the Emperor wants Ciri alive.
It's a little bit of political insurrection there at the end.
As much as a lot happens in this book, I still feel towards the end it still doesn't quite feel like it's a full story. It still feels like it's part of a larger story.
Yeah. In one way, that's a good thing, because it isn't meant to be like the end and then, oh, we're going to tack some more on.
Yeah.
It's kind of not as satisfying to get. I mean, this is basically a setup for the next book.
Yeah. At least things happened. There was stuff, like, the book is, like, with the exception of the uncomfortable chapters and segments of it, I don't even say the full of the chapters, because the chapters contain a lot each, but because there's only 7 chapters to the book, I think. Yeah,
the structure of these books is really weird compared to how most of the Western like fiction stuff usually divvies up chapters.
Yeah, it was like 7 chapters, but every so often there'll be like a double line break to signify a different section
Yeah.
within the chapter. I mean, I've read fantasy fiction that doesn't even do chapters. Discworld doesn't even have chapters. It breaks into segments, which are basically chapters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this book is more fun. I don't know if fun's the right word, but it's more entertaining than the previous books we have read. I would definitely give caveats. Like, it is still edgelord fantasy, kinda, but...
Yeah, it's a lot more, like, substantial than either the short stories or last novel that we read.
I don't know if I say this because of, like, a sense of diminished expectations from having read...
Yeah, I don't know either. It's tough.
I might have to try and find some time to read good fiction next month, just so I set a bar of expectation. I've read a lot less this year than I would have liked to, but...
Yeah, I have plenty of free time myself, so I will probably also do that. I read this all in an entire day, and it was fine.
No, I read this over the course of the whole month, gradually. So, as a whole, what did you make of this book?
I think it's still a little more like foundation for later plot points, but I feel like it was still... It fleshed out the world a bit better, and kind of the social structure of, like, the sorcerers, which I was kind of curious about, but also they annihilated that, like, a chapter later, so maybe not the best point.
Actually, we kind of missed out on the part, like, during the Conclave fight, is, like, when Geralt, as he's climbing up towards the tower, towards the Conclave, when Kirametz just falls out the window, and, just like... Sorry, Geralt, I've fallen out a window. I'm really going to get back to that person who threw me out the window. I forgot who they were, but...
I think it was Vilgefortz.
Yeah, Vilgefortz. And just, like, how she's just mad and wants to carry on, even though she's, like, very clearly injured.
Yeah, like, she can't walk at all.
Yeah. She can cast spells still, but...
Like, it basically became, like, an escort mission kind of thing where, like... Your buddy can still throw some danger around, but it still sucks.
Yeah.
Also, like, apropos of nothing, I would probably, like, point at the banquet scene for, like, probably the best thing in the series so far. Just because it's a bunch of goofy nonsense, and Geralt does a bunch of stupid shit. Like, there are two sorceresses that are just talking about how they want to fuck him, and he's just like... Man, I'm really glad I can't blush because of all that Trial of Grasses shit.
Yeah.
He's trying to eat prawns politely because everyone's looking at him.
Yeah.
It's goofy, and I liked it.
Yeah, no, it's a really... I still feel that there's generally room to improve with this series, but I feel like it is starting to improve.
Yeah, I think it's a little better. It's still got the edgelord bits in there, and I wish that would flatten out a bit, but it's not gonna, I don't think.
No. I want to swear by The Witcher 3 being a good game.
We'll get there one day.
We'll get there. Oh, be a while, but...
Also, like, Ciri has, like, a gay moment at the end.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I still feel a little weird that being authored by, like, a 40-year-old dude at the time, but
yeah,
it's a good step in general.
Yeah,
I think probably the funniest subversion of expectations would be if like this isn't how Witcher 3 goes, I'm pretty sure, but like if Ciri just got married to another woman and they didn't have a child of their own but adopted, and then like, oh, prophecy averted, fucking deal with it.
That doesn't happen.
No,
but...
Of course not.
No, I'm not going to tell you what does happen, but that does not. Yeah, that is Time of Contempt.
That is the Time of Contempt. Thanks for listening, everyone. We don't have any questions.
We don't have any questions.
Nope, we don't.
Also, did you see that the Witcher Netflix series has now got a writer on it? It's in production.
Oh, lordy, are we going to end up doing that for a podcast too?
That would be fun. If it's any good. I mean, there's a Polish Witcher TV series, but apparently it's the worst.
I kind of want to watch.
Apparently it's really bad. I can sort of vaguely remember the quote. It's something like, the things I want to say about it are very rude, but I'm a Polish Catholic and it's Lent, is what the author said about
Oh
the
my
TV
God,
show, I believe.
That's incredible.
I believe he's not a fan of the games either.
Well, okay. Fair enough. Thanks for listening. Next time, we'll be discussing A Baptism of Fire, which is the next book in the series.
Yeah.
You can send us questions on it or the series in general via email at witchercast@jrpgsaredead.fyi or by tweeting at us. You can find me on Twitter at Invisifool, and you can find Sam on Twitter at Samuel Howitt. Good night, everybody.
Bye!